Good morning, guys. Story time with Ash and Sean. Today I'll be reading chapter 27, Tobias, from mine, the first book in the Blood Tie series from A.K. Rose. She's an awesome writer. Really should read her books if you're into dark romance. Her little body tightened as Caleb thrust into her mouth, and Nick pulled free from her pussy. Bringing his phone down to follow the movement. He fucking loved to watch. I'd bet he'll replay this night over and over. Christ, the image of her lying there, her cunt dripping, her mouth wide, taking as much as my brother as she could. This was my deepest fantasy come to life. I just never imagined I'd be with someone who was going to be our goddamn sister. Maybe that was why this felt so damn good. As I demanded, my voice husky. You get that, right? She moaned as Callum gently gripped her head, guiding himself deeper. His arms clenching, his big cock stretching her mouth wider until she gagged and spluttered. Ours, Caleb murmured, his balls tightening as he thrust harder, then stilled, forcing her head backward as he came down her throat. All ours. She bucked, then sucked in hard breaths as he pulled out and stroked her hair. You did well, princess, so very well. Her chest rose with consuming breaths, and her breast trembled after what we'd just done to her, two of us on her first night. I'll take care of her. Caleb glanced my way, surprised. You sure? I didn't answer, just rounded the bed and knelt beside her. It's okay. I sat down next to her, pulling her close. She resisted at first, shoving her hand against my chest to push me away. Maybe it was because I was such a fucking arsehole. I didn't want to be, but she triggered me, driving me over that brink to being that fucking beast. Easy, I murmured, my movements slow, fingers sliding over her hips, drawing her against me. Memories flickered in my head as Rice stopped fighting me, lifting her gaze to mine. I wasn't always like this, wasn't so fucking hard or unkind. I'm not going to hurt you, I said carefully as I pulled her closer, her breast pressing against my chest. That warmth felt so fucking good, almost good as the hate. I closed my eyes and lowered my head, nestled my face against her neck, and breathed in that perfect scent of vanilla. I've got you, little mouse, I whispered in her ear. And in the echoes of my mind, I told my mum I'll take care of her too. All those months I washed her face and brushed her hair. All those nights I'd sat by her side, holding her hand as the realization hit home that this was real, this was happening. She was dying, and there wasn't a fucking thing we could do to stop it. Wraith relaxed, sliding her arms around my waist. Tobias, shh. I turned my head and kissed her mouth. It's going to be good now. You just wait and see. She closed her eyes, letting me kiss along her neck and take her mouth. And after a while she relaxed. I looked over at Nick, who'd just lowered his damn phone, and glared at him, letting the warning spill through my eyes. Show anyone else and I'll fucking end you, blood or not. She was ours to keep secret, and there wasn't a goddamn thing I wouldn't do to protect that. He nodded, slipping his phone back into his damn pocket as slow, soft snores came from the woman in my arms. Nick jerked his gaze to the sound. I flattened my hand against her back, pulling her closer against me. The act was possessive, even amongst my brothers. But I didn't care. I didn't care because it was her. I looked down, finding that birthmark on her cheek, and felt something inside me shift. I leant over, brushing my lips along that mark, and she hated so damn much. But I didn't hate it. In fact, I felt all kinds of things about it. I scrawled as I dragged my fingers along it, then glanced at my hand and the shape of her mark. I lifted my palm and pressed my fingers against the outline again. Jesus, Nick murmured, but I couldn't look away. I was transfixed at how the mark wasn't just a blob of redness, but it was the exact fucking outline on my fingers. The same height, same crook on my middle finger where I'd broken it on some arsehole's cheek. I shifted my focus to her closed eyes. She'd been made for me, even if she didn't know it. She would. I would never felt this way about someone, had never wanted to feel it. Not the wake of Mum's death, and not in the wake of the fight with Rossi, the other bastard who'd seemed to take a fucking interest in her. I needed to keep her away from him and that asshole Geo. Nick, can you find out where that fucking Geo lives? I asked, staring at her in my arms. I can ask around. I nodded, rocking her gently. Good. I felt a proper introduction is in his goddamn future. Caleb bent, grabbing the blanket which had been shoved to the bottom of the bed, and dragged it up over us. Ryth let out a sweet goddamn murmur and shifted harder against me. My brothers watched her for a second, then glanced at me, with a dangerous knowing burn in their eyes. We couldn't let her go. Not even if we wanted to. Not anymore. Clothes. I jerked my gaze to the dresser. The last thing I wanted was for her to wake up naked in her own damn bed. That would freak her out. Nick yanked open the drawer, then froze and threw a glance over his shoulder at her still sleeping in my arms, then proceeded quieter that damn time. Our little mouse needed sleep and to process. I prayed to God she didn't freak out. I looked down at her and as gently as I could slid my hand under her neck and eased her head to the pillow. Do you want me to? Nick started holding out one of my t-shirts and a pair of my boxes. He's got it, Caleb answered for me. I lifted my gaze, finding his, and all of a sudden I was thrown from this moment and we were back there, to that room downstairs near the basement, the room we never went to now, the room that was once used as a hospital room. Nick looked from Caleb to me and stilled. Go on, brother. Caleb motioned and leant down, gently pulling the blanket from her body.